Hello then, I guess. Well, welcome. Uh,
We're back reading another book
we're reading
together.
another book. Today's book is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson.
Brando
Uh,
Sando
Brando
himself.
the Sando. This is a Cosmere novel, as it says. But it's supposed to be standalone, so we figured we could
Yeah.
jump in here. We've each read a couple of the Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books. That's not his name. I keep saying
Brandon
Brandon
Sanderson.
Sanderson. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think of this one, Josh? What do you know
I'm
of this?
interested. I'm interested. Yeah. I've read, a few Brandon Sandersons. I've read Elantris. I've read the first Mistborn book. Um, I have read Arcanum Unbound, which includes a bunch of short stories set in the
Mhm.
Cosmere, and I have now also read Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I know you have as well, which
Yes.
is the only other one of these secret projects,
Yes.
which this is one that
Yeah.
I have read. Um, and I was just saying to you off camera, I was interested by how connected that one seemed to be to his Cosmere, to his other
hmm
books, um, for ostensibly a standalone. And it was a
Yeah.
standalone.
Yeah.
But it had like a lot of connective tissue, a lot of connective elements to
Yes.
it, which I didn't hate by any
No,
means. I thought
I
that was really interesting.
yeah, I kind of thought that was cool as well. And yeah, the main thing with that one was that it's narrated by Hoyd, who's a character who's appeared in several of the different uh Cosmere series, and he
Hmm.
has like a major role in Tress, and so that's part of why he's narrating the story. Um, and apparently, as we were looking up about this one, he's narrating this one as well. It says Brandon Sanderson brings us a gripping story set in the Cosmic Universe as told by Hoyd, where two people from incredibly different cultures that must work together to save their worlds from certain disaster. So there you go. That's
Mm.
a little info about this one. Yeah, we were just reading the back of the book before we started recording to try to get a sense of what we were getting into.
Yeah. And I'll be reading it audiobook style.
Mhm.
Um, and had slightly different blurbs and discovered this one is a fantasy romance. And it's
Yes.
not that there aren't romances in a lot of his other ones. I think in
Mhm.
fact Elantris, Mistborn, and Tress all have romances in them.
Right.
Uh so I'm curious to
Right.
know if
If
this
this
one
is
leans more into that
more into
element of
that,
it.
it very well might. If it says that it is focused on that. So there you go. I guess we'll find out by reading.
But yeah, I think a fun part of doing this with you
Yeah.
is like truly not knowing what to
Yeah.
expect going in,
Uh-huh.
or having at least like a vague idea and then having like a big question mark around it and seeing what
Mhm.
we think of it as we go. Like we get to talk about it at the end, which is
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. No, the other thing that I thought was cool about was interest for this one was just I like the title. I think it sounds Nightmare Painter. What is that? I don't know. It
Yeah,
sounds cool. I want to
I
find out.
I the other thing I know is that like one of the like it's Yumi and the love interest is named Painter, so I want to know
Right.
why it's called the Nightmare Painter
Right.
because that sounds like a title. That sounds like a really interesting
Right.
title for like a really interesting person with an interesting job, but also
Mhm.
the name of a character. And is he the Nightmare Painter or what? What's the
Uh
deal? I want to
po-
know.
Possibly. It looks like he's got a paintbrush on the cover here.
Yours is a
So
paintbrush on the cover.
yeah, so there
Oh,
you go. I guess
is he is he
he's
her nightmare?
ooh, I don't know. Maybe, is it like a forbidden
Is
sexy
it?
romance where it's like, oh, he's the nightmare, but
That
it's
really would
also
be leaning into romanticy
he's
tropes.
kind of
That would
hot
be.
though, but he's also kind of
Yeah.
hot. I kind of want to kiss him. Maybe.
Who
Yeah, I don't
knows?
know.
Watch this be really smutty.
Yeah. That would surprise me. Uh
That surprised me too.
uh
there's just a corner of the Cosmere that's
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 like
devoted
very,
to
very sexy.
it's like erotica.
Yeah, it's the erotica planet on of the
It's the
Cosmere.
erotica planet. They don't have erotica elsewhere.
No.
Hoig discovers
Yeah,
erotica
he's
when
like,
he
oh
gets to this
man.
planet. Let me tell you about my favorite new thing. Well, I don't think that's what we're gonna get in this
Probably not,
story.
but that's okay. I'm
Um,
sure whatever we get will be interesting or at least worth talking about. So,
yeah, cool.
um,
I'll see you on the other side.
yeah, I think that's it for now. Alrighty, cool.
See you then.
Welcome back. We read a book. Um, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is now read by us.
Hmm.
And we're gonna talk about it.
Yes, we've
Yeah.
not talked to each other about it before this.
No. So this is we're going in raw. This is what did you think of what are your what are your thoughts, Josh?
Oh man. Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts.
I also have a lot of thoughts. I have very strong thoughts.
Okay. All right.
I so I've read a few Sandersons. We talked about this
Yeah.
last time. So here's the deal.
Mhm.
I love this world.
Yeah.
I love the setting. I
Mhm.
think so much of the magic is like really, really fantastic.
Mhm.
And I like the Cosmere elements of
Yeah.
it as well. That it's like it's a setting in itself and is part of a wider setting, and all of that feels coherent and excellently crafted. And there was a moment getting into the third act. How spoilerific are we getting?
I think what we should do is do like our talk about like the main structure and then do like a and some of our thoughts and then do like a spoiler filled section towards the end because there's a bunch of stuff at the end that I really want to talk about.
Yeah,
So, but like up to like we can we'll talk a little bit about the main
yeah,
like loose spoilers. We'll talk about a little bit about the characters and the main like setup and the main like dynamic and stuff. But we'll leave anything in the third act of like when they reveal like what is really going on and what's really the connection between
yeah.
these two worlds is. We'll leave that till the spoiler section at the end. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay, cool.
So
Um,
there's a moment where stuff is revealed that is
mhm,
very powerful and strong and good,
mhm,
and I liked it a lot. I find Brandon Sanderson's prose
mhm.
to be of a middle school level. I would
Little
be very happy giving this book to a 10-year-old with absolute confidence that they would understand everything in it.
right.
And the narration style is one of don't worry, I will explain everything. You don't have to think too hard about how to feel about any of it because I'll tell you how to feel about it.
Right.
And I'll get more into
Yeah.
that later, but I found it condescending and it was upsetting to me
Mhm.
that the moment to moment was so unenjoyable considering the highlights of the ideas
Mhm.
were so strong. So it
That's
was worth reading, even though
yeah.
it made me angry.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that's a fairly common criticism of Sanderson is that his prose are not the most mind-blowing ever. Um
No.
I don't know if I mind that much.
Cool.
And maybe I'm just dumber than you, which is possible.
No.
Uh
No.
but
You're maybe not as much of a snob as I am.
that's well, I wouldn't put it that way. But no, I think that is a fair criticism. Like I've been I was talking to you off camera. I've been reading a lot of Stephen King recently,
Yes.
and his prose are beautiful and wonderful, and
Yeah.
he's very very good at the craft of just making words sound nice together, and
Yeah.
can make you feel creeped out by like the most bizarre things that you wouldn't, and then suddenly you're like, why am I scared of this? Why am I scared of whatever scary thing he's deciding to make scary
Sure.
this week. But um Yeah, Sanderson is not nearly on that level for sure. So I think I like the ideas enough that it doesn't bother me too much, at least
Yeah.
as a reader. In my experience, there is some stuff towards the end, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. Should we?
That I have a
Should
lot
we?
of mixed
Should?
thoughts on. Let's talk a little bit about like the main structure of the
Yeah.
book and like actually. So we got okay, so we got Yumi. There's two main characters. There's Yumi and there's the Nightmare Painter, or just Painter, as he usually goes by. Um, and they're from two different worlds. Yumi is, I forget the term, but she's like this special chosen one who has this connection with the spirits.
She's a Yoki
A
Hijo.
Yoki Hiju, or Hijo, is it? I don't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I listened to it, which is very
Okay.
helpful for remembering these
That's
things.
helpful for pronunciation as well.
It
Yeah,
is, yeah.
it's very like Asian, Japanese, Korean kind of influence.
Yeah,
The
he talks a
whole
little bit
world and
about
story.
that at the end,
At the
how
end.
I think Painter or Nikoro is
Mhm.
inspired by this culture's inspired by sort of more modern day
Modern
Japan,
Japan, yeah.
and Yumi's was
Like
medieval
ancient
Korean.
Korean, yeah.
Some I think
Something like that.
was what he said. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's very
Yeah, I
Asian
know
style.
that Sanderson lived in Korea for a little bit, so he has knowledge of that. He speaks a little bit of Korean, and so I'm sure that was an influence on the story
Hmm.
as well. Yeah, so Yumi is this like special chosen one. She has this connection with the spirits of her world, and um she has this power to call the spirits by stacking rocks, which I love. I love this
It's
whole concept.
it's very cool.
It's considered the like most like the highest form of art in her world is this like very intricate, very intense stacking of rocks. Um, and through doing that, she's able to call the spirits, sort of like a prayer to them, and then by like making these sculptures out of rocks for the spirits, she can ask the spirits to become different objects and different
Yeah.
things that help out the citizens of these different towns that she travels to. And so they'll like need like a flashlight or something, and then
Yeah.
the spirit will form into a flashlight and that kind of thing. um but it's a lot of time was spent on the rock stacking, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, way more than you necessarily think,
Yeah.
going right off the bat.
Mhm.
Um, which
It remind
I didn't mind at all.
No, I loved all that stuff.
Really, really good.
It reminded me a little bit of oh, I'm trying to remember what they're called, but they're like it's like a Canadian
The Inukchuks.
Nookshuks. Yeah, how do you spell that?
Yeah, the First Nation rock stacks.
Inukshuk. Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, but those are a little bit more like they're trying to be like they look like people, like they're stacked to look like,
Yes.
which this is not necessarily that. They're like formed in very intricate, strange
Yeah.
shapes and weird stackings and stuff like that. Anyways, very cool. I loved it. I loved all that stuff.
Yeah. And her sort of thing is like she's been raised to be this spiritual person and to
Mhm.
do this thing and has no sort of freedom in her life.
Yes.
It's very, very restrictive spiritual
Mhm.
lifestyle on a very hot, sunny world where the ground is
Yes,
like
the ground is
brutally hot.
so hot that they have to wear like certain shoes, and they have to they're if they ever get cold, they just lie down on the ground. Stuff
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's a lot of like hot springs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So her thing is that she wants to go to the festival. She wants to get up the
Mhm.
courage to ask to go to the festival. That's where she starts the story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit Disney princess. I
Yeah.
want to go out and see what the people do, and
I
yeah,
want to be.
why the people are. Yeah, it's a little bit that. So yeah, she's like the special chosen one, but she wants to kind of have a normal life. That's sort of her thing. And then Painter is kind of a opposite type of situation.
Yeah.
So Painter on his world, he's a nightmare painter. So what his job, and it's like sort of the idea here is it's like a regular. job
Yeah,
in this world, but it's like a magic fantasy world, so it's like seems super duper cool and crazy to us, but to like people from his world, it's like just kind of it's like he's an exterminator or something. It's like not that.
yeah, he just pest control.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so in his world, which is a world of like perpetual nighttime, there's
yeah,
this like shroud that is seems to block out the sun, if there even is a sun on this world.
they
Unclear
know
to them.
they
Or do
they
they know?
they know there's a star out there
They know
that's
there's a
close by,
they know there's a star, but if there's a sun or not, unclear. They can't see one.
but
It's
they're investigating space travel, so they're like,
Yes,
yeah, there's a sun, but it
there's
doesn't
stuff
like,
out there, but we can't
yeah,
like see it really.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But there's these nightmares that are like these shadowy figures that come through the shroud, and try to like eat and like feed off of people's emotions and
Mhm.
dreams, and cause them to have nightmares. And you can trap them by painting. So if you paint a shape that looks kind of similar to the nightmare, you can trap them trap their essence in your painting. And so that's sort of
Mhm.
his job. And he's kind of in a place where he's like lost the passion for it. So he's like an artist that's sort of doing this day job over and over again, and kind of lost the like passion for creativity. And he
Mhm.
kind of wants to be more important than just a guy doing a job. That's sort of part of his whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. He I don't want to do too many spoilers.
Yeah. But
Uh,
we'll get into like the how they end up meeting, I think, a little bit.
yeah, but the way it sort of works is, yeah, these nightmares manifest out of the shroud. They
Hmm.
come into town, and as long as they're painted by a nightmare painter, they have to come into town a certain number of times, and they
Yeah.
gain substantiality and like form as
Yes.
they do. And so as long as they're painted before they reach like full corporeality,
Hmm.
everything's fine and
Yeah.
everyone can be safe. But as soon as they become like real, then they start killing people, and it's a
Yeah.
really big problem. So it's like it's very important what he does, but then there are
Hmm.
like just a bunch of people who go around
Yeah.
doing it.
He's
Yeah.
one of dozens of people in his city that do this job.
Yeah, he makes very little money.
Mhm.
He's got like a shabby one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah,
just
and there are these Heon lines, which are these like
yes.
blue and magenta lines of energy that work functionally kind of like electricity. Because they
Yeah.
can like use them to power lights and to power stuff. They have TV shows, which I love. They're like soap operas that they watch,
Yeah, so
um,
good.
which are excellent. I love all that stuff. Um, and there's like a connection between there seems to be a connection between like this light and this spirituality and the magic of this world, because they're kind of magic,
Yeah.
but they kind of function like electricity and energy. It's a whole there's
Yeah,
reveals about all what that all is later on.
yeah. And like
Um,
yeah, it's yeah, the magical neon, as I like to
yeah,
call it.
yeah,
The Heon allows like keeps the shroud mostly at bay.
yeah.
Allows for passage through the shroud to other places, to other
Mhm,
cities. Yeah, that's the setup. Yeah, no,
mhm.
for these
Yes,
two people.
yeah.
And
So
then,
so that's all. Yeah, that's all just establishing backstory stuff, and then the initiating event is that it's kind of a body swap story, but a
yeah,
little bit different. Um,
I liked the differences.
yes, I think it was a fun idea. Yeah, so the concept is I guess a spirit comes to Yumi and is like, I need your
Yes.
help with something. And the spirit somehow causes Yumi and Painter to swap bodies, kind of. But their spirits just get kicked out of their bodies. And so they're watching the other person in their body,
Yes.
but it's like a little bit different. So like on Yumi's world, that's what's happening. Yumi's incorporeal. She's like a ghost or a spirit, and she sees Painter, who's in her body, but to her, he just looks like Painter. So they still can interact more or less. Like they still see each other and hear each other and everything. But then everyone else on her world sees Painter as Yumi. So he has to like keep up the presence of being this Yokihijo, this like chosen spiritual leader, but he doesn't know anything about how to do that. So she's trying to like help him out.
Can I just say that
Yeah,
the first couple of scenes of him stacking rocks or being unable to stack rocks
yeah.
actually had me laughing out
Oh
loud.
yeah,
They were
incredible.
so good.
And she's like, okay, like she like she's like, okay, lift one, pick one rock. What do you notice about this? And he's like, it's a rock. I like, what do you mean? She's like, well, there's all these details about it. It's heavier on one side and all this stuff. And he's like, I don't know, man. It's a rock.
He puts it down and
Yeah,
it falls over.
yeah,
And this first rock he puts down doesn't stack on itself.
yeah. She's like, how did you? It already fell, and there's only one. How did you? You can't stack one thing. Great stuff.
So good.
Yeah, and then when they go to sleep, they wake up in Painter's world, and Painter's kicked out of his body. Yumi's in his body, but something about the magic system makes it so that Yumi just looks like Yumi, even to everyone else.
Yes.
So they have to like come up with a reason why she's there. They're like, oh, I'm his sister visiting from out of town, and
Right.
all his like coworkers end up meeting her and
Yeah.
stuff. And there is eventually an explanation as to why she looks like herself, but Painter doesn't. But I realized the main reason is that it's more fun and interesting character wise,
For sure.
because then we get a lot of scenes of Yumi being allowed to explore what it's like to be a regular person and have like a group of friends and like
Yeah.
interact with people, go to there's a shopping montage which is fun, where she gets to like buy clothes for
Yeah.
herself, and it's the first time she's ever owned anything that's like hers, and that's like a really unique experience for her. Versus on Painter's world, he gets to like he gets if he was just put into if he just looked like himself in her world, they'd be like, who are you, get
Yeah.
out. They wouldn't like care. But if he looks like Yumi, then they're like, why is Yumi acting so weird? So they have all these scenes where like she doesn't even feed herself, like that's how little restriction she has over her own
Yeah.
life. So there's like a scene where he just starts eating, and they're like her like assistants like freak out. They're like, what's happening? You've never done this before. We're supposed to feed you like bite by
Are we
bite.
not good enough for you? Like,
Yeah.
are we doing a bad job? But yeah, it's interesting. I
Mhm.
think it shows again like the really deep understanding of writing craft that
Yes.
he like created these characters where what Painter needs is to not be himself.
Mhm.
Like he needs to be away from his own situation, his own perspective. And what Yumi needs is to be herself without her duties.
Yes. Yeah.
So
They have the
the
perfect
situation, yeah.
like works out to have that perfect like way to achieve that, and it's great. And then there's like
Yeah.
a lot of stuff where they have to start learning each other's craft and each other's art form,
Yeah.
to in order to like, okay, well, like there's a whole thing with there's this nightmare that's almost fully formed that Painter interacts with early
Yeah.
on, and he's like, it's out there somewhere, and so we might have to face this at some point, so I'm going to start teaching you how to paint, because in case we have to come across it one day,
Mhm.
you need to at least be able to defend yourself a little bit. And then he has to start learning how to stack rocks because he's looks like Yumi in her
Yeah.
world. Really, all that stuff I think is so cool. And I really like all the stuff about like art, and how art has this really
Yeah.
spiritual importance in both worlds, and
Yeah.
it's connected directly to like the magic and everything. And all the yeah, there's a lot of stuff about like the importance of art and the importance of culture, and that kind of thing in both worlds. And yeah, there's a whole arc with Painter losing like his passion for art,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. And yeah, he has to kind of that's part of his arc, is he has to learn to have the will and the like the reason, almost like a reason to live, a reason to like paint
Yeah.
again, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I just like all that stuff. I think it's really cool. I think the world is super duper cool.
It
um,
is. It is. It's
yeah.
very, very cool. And the the mystery as it continues of them trying to figure out why this has happened to them,
Mhm.
how to do whatever it is the spirit needs
Yes.
Yumi to do. Like, why have they been? Why are they swapping
Yeah,
bodies?
why are they swapping?
Um, and how can they not to the end of undoing it, but how can they fulfill what needs doing?
Yes.
And what even is that? And
Yeah.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
there
and
are
we
reveals.
start, yeah, like we assume there's like some kind of connection between the two worlds, and like part of them trying to figure out what they're supposed to do is like uncovering what that connection is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on, which is like a motif that I really, really liked, is there's sort of like a dyad, like a two connection between a
Like
lot of the
a
stuff in the world. Like it's Yumi's world is a world of heat and light.
mhm,
Painter's world is a world of darkness and cold,
mhm.
and it's almost like a black and white yin yang kind of situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is obviously like a Asian
Mhm.
philosophy and mythological concept. And that concept is kind of repeated throughout in different ways. Like the Heon lines, there's two of those, like a
Yeah.
positive and a negative. Like which is the same with like electricity, where we have a positive end and a negative end, but it also fits back into that theme. There was another example that I can't remember off the top of my head, but that concept of, yeah, just the male and female being
Mhm.
another aspect of it. You have like in the young symbol, there's like a black and a white dot in opposite
Yeah.
sides, which is kind of what's going on here, where you have Yumi and Painter are like in the opposite side of what they're used to. So everything, there's like a little bit of light
Mhm.
in Painter's world, and there's a little bit of darkness in Yumi's world. All that stuff I think is cool, and I like
Yeah,
the
absolutely. And
yeah.
they explore this a little bit as well, that in Yumi's world, there is a very strong emphasis on a robust spiritual life and
Mhm.
practice, but materially people are very poor.
Yes.
Um, and it takes a lot of work to meet people's physical needs, as opposed to Page's world, which is more like the modern day, where people's physical
Mhm.
needs are very easy to meet,
Mhm.
and no emphasis is put on spiritual practice or
Yeah.
life. And so there is a yin yang in that sense as well, where there's a moment where it gets commented on that Yumi's commenting on Painter's world being like you know how would this affect you to just have all of this stuff? And then he's like, yeah, but you have stuff, like you have
Mhm.
anything, like it's nice to have a shower, for example. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good thing to have. Yeah, and like he's like, it is not a bad thing to not be hungry and to be able to go places and to be able to clean yourself and have clothes. Like,
Yeah.
there is a balance to both of their
Yes.
worlds, that
Yes,
things that
exactly.
each has. Yeah.
And yeah, and that's a big theme I think as well, is finding balance. It is like it a lot of what Yumi does is admirable in a way, that she's like
For
so
sure.
devoted to her art and her craft and her spirituality and stuff. But at the same time, it's like it's okay to like feed yourself and like
Yeah.
own a couple pairs of clothes and like things like that, which is what the lesson that she needs to learn. And that's even, we find out later that some of the other, because there's a few different Yokahijos
Yeah.
in her world, and some of the other ones are a little bit more lax about their practices. Like they only do
Mhm.
their thing a couple times a week, and they take the rest of the week off, and they like
Mhm.
go and do things that they like, and they take downtime and stuff, and it
Yes,
seems okay.
it does seem okay, and they're still able to summon spirits.
Yes.
And it
Mhm.
is also true that Yumi, who does none of those things, is the
Mhm.
strongest Yokihijo of all of
Yes,
them.
that's also true. So it's a little bit like, oh, well, maybe that's part of why she's so strong, is that she's not taking time off.
Mhm.
I don't know, but it's
So yeah, it's
yeah.
not quite as simple
Mhm.
as Oh, you just don't need to do any of this stuff. It's like,
Right,
oh
yeah.
well,
No,
yeah.
it's still, yeah, it's still important to meditate and to do all of her practices, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's a little this it's finding the balance, right? That's a big part
Yeah.
of.
And his romance.
And there's a romance. Yes, I almost forgot to mention that. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
romance. It's that's like a big part of the whole thing is it's a romance. Yeah, so there's like a lot of somewhat cliched scenes where Yumi in her world, she's like bathed every day as part of her ritual for getting ready to do her spiritual practices. So of course we have to have like a bath scene where uh
Yeah.
Painter and Yumi are suddenly having to bathe together while they don't know each other very well. Stuff like that. They get forced to get to know each other very quickly, very intimately,
Yeah.
because they're forced into the situation. And then of course, you know, it starts to
How did
become a little
you,
romantic.
yeah, how did you feel about the romance element of
Uh,
this book?
I was fine with it. I wasn't. I think I was more interested in just the world and the way that the worlds were connected. Um, and I liked all the stuff about art and learning to do different arts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't like I wasn't rooting against them to or anything.
No, no, I
Um,
just,
I wasn't necessarily blown away by it, by
I
their
th
romance, if that makes sense.
yeah. I think no, I think that that definitely makes sense. My I don't bring it up
Yeah,
because I was like, oh no, it's bad. I'm
yeah,
like, it's fine.
yeah,
I think I think a big emphasis was put on the fact that it was a romance, and I don't know that there needed to be. Like the way that it was done, it's just sort of it just happened, and it was fine that it happened.
mhm,
But I wasn't like invested in the romance element of it. Like I wasn't going like,
yeah,
oh man, I really hope that they get
yeah,
together. So it just and it also it just kind of felt inevitable. Like it felt like
yeah. Like there was no situation where they don't end up together
yeah,
eventually,
yeah,
assuming they don't like die or something by the end.
sure, yeah. If one of them
Yeah,
dies, then oh no, it's a tragedy. But they were
yeah,
in love,
yeah.
and I, I don't know. I was again, I was fine with it, but I was also a little bit like, do these people are these people compatible? Like do
Yeah.
they have any chemistry actually? I don't
Yeah,
know.
outside of being forced to be together.
Yeah, one is boy and one is girl. It felt like one of those,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yes, I think that's
Uh,
fair.
um, so I was less impressed with that element of it for sure.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair. I think I agree there. But yeah, not that I was necessarily against them getting together or there being romance in the
no,
book.
by all
Um,
means, go for it.
but
But it felt like it, you know, maybe it was that it felt like it was done in shorthand, that it was, no, it's
mm,
not necessarily true. But scenes like them bathing together,
right, you're like, okay, I know where this whole book is
yeah,
going. Yeah.
here are all the trope indicators that this is the thing that is happening.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just like,
Yeah.
and here are the scenes where you know that they will be together by the
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. That could be it. Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think there's ever outside of them like not realizing that they're falling in love by spending time together. Like I don't think there's and the fact that they're like incorporeal.
Yeah.
Um, there's anything that's like, oh man, I sure wish we could be together, but we can't because of this. Like that never is a thing that happens. Not that you necessarily need that in a romance, but I don't know. There's I guess there's usually some tension. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
There
I'm not
was
a
one
big romance
moment where
guy.
there was a bit of tension like that, where um they get close to what they think is going to fulfill the spirit's needs, or
Hmm.
they're worried. They're like, yeah, oh wait, shit, we're from like different worlds. Are we ever actually going to find each
Right.
other again? And I was like,
Yeah.
that part was actually the best part of the thing
Yeah.
for me, because it was like, yeah, them facing the facts like, oh, the only reason we know each other is because we're body swapping between two worlds.
Mhm.
And Painter's World is like inventing space travel, but they're like, are they gonna let a person, just a
Yeah.
normal person on a spaceship? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
um, so yeah, I liked that, and I think that status quo of them being worried about never finding each other again didn't last very long
Yeah.
in the book. It was a
Yeah.
good moment. I think that was probably the most invested I felt in the romance.
Yeah, I like that moment as well. Yeah, and then I think it's because I think it's soon after that they start to figure out what's actually going on, and then that kind of
Yeah,
becomes more of the priority.
which
Um,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm not a big romance guy, so I can't like. I'm not sure if I know all the tropes of like why something works and why, or all the reasons why one thing works
Yeah.
for me and why one thing doesn't necessarily. So,
It's a weird one because I've read a
mhm.
few romance books as like I research for my job. I sell books.
Yeah, yeah,
Um and I wanted to know what was going on in the
yeah.
romance part of the shop. And the same thing that I think lends the romance element weight is the thing that I don't like about romance books, which is spending a lot of time on the romance element. Um,
Yeah, see, this is
right?
why I'm
Like,
like my favorite romance is probably Spider-Man 2.
great romance. Great
where,
romance.
where a huge chunk of it is about him being Spider-Man.
Yeah. No, and I think it like balance wise,
Mhm,
Sanderson absolutely does the right thing, which is like the book is about the characters on their journey. It's about the plot and what the plot's doing.
mhm.
Um, I think he does a really good job of each of the characters going through an arc.
Yes, I absolutely. And the arc
And
isn't just that they're falling in love.
no, it's not, and that's
They
great.
have, yeah, they have personal growth that they have to get through,
Yes,
which
I
I
think
like.
in generally speaking, in books that are like romance books,
Mhm.
it, characters usually forego going on their own arcs
Right,
in favor of just whatever the hell is the romance
right.
of the book. And it makes, for me, those
Yeah.
books kind of intolerable. Uh,
Yeah, I prefer there to also be a character arc for our
yeah.
characters. Uh,
So yeah, good job. Mostly good job, Sanderson.
yeah,
And also, yeah, it did. Yeah, good job.
yeah. I don't know. Do you want to get into spoilers now?
Love to get into
Cool.
spoilers.
Okay, so yeah, I think briefly, overall, mostly positive on the book. World is super cool. I like the characters and their arcs.
Yeah, it's so funny. Everything
Yeah,
that is the meat and potatoes of the book, like the structure of it, the character arcs, the characters themselves, the world, the way that the plot unfolds, all of that is great, and I like it. And only in the delivery do I have problems, but it makes me really mad. But yes, really, I am generally speaking very positive on the book.
awesome. Okay, we're gonna go full spoilers now. So if you haven't read the book or you don't care about spoilers, not that there you go. That's your warning.
Yep, there you
Uh,
are.
you can come back after you've read the book and finish the video. Yeah. So yeah, the main thing that is revealed is about like how the worlds are connected, and I had a theory, and my theory did not come true,
Tell me.
and I think I'm just a little bit mad at that because I'm not sure if the how the worlds are connected works
Sure.
for me. And
I also had a theory that
I
wasn't
don't know if
true.
it's just that it's my theory didn't come true. um, but my theory was that it was going to be time travel. Was that
Okay, interesting.
yeah? Because I'm like, okay, we're getting because there was a few moments where like there was a moment where they're watching one of the like soap operas on TV,
Yeah.
and Painter's like, oh, you might like this one. It's like a historical drama, so it's like based on stuff that is from our history. It's kind of similar to how your world works. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, obvious, and I'm like, okay, there's gonna be some connection between the spirits and the nightmares because those seem like two halves of the same
Oh,
coin.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That was all very
yeah,
clear.
Um, and I'm like, oh, what if the nightmares are like a twisted form of the
Like
spirits that's like something changed in Yumi's world and it
there are
caused.
even hints at that,
Yeah,
where the nightmares like remember stuff, maybe a
yeah.
little,
And that turned out to not be the case, except kind of a little bit.
kind of, but
Um,
not
but
quite.
not quite. They even, yeah, when they're starting to figure out like, okay, how are these worlds actually connected? Because there's a point where, yeah, one of the like the background plots is that their painter's world is like starting to discover space travel, and they know
Yes.
that there's like a star nearby that's like another planet, and they've had like there seems to be civilization on there. We're not entirely sure. We're going to send a space expedition to see, and like they get to that world and it's just an unrelated world. It's not Yumi's
Yeah,
world. They like
it's a
Painter's like
red herring.
I think it's Yumi. I think that's your world, but it's a red herring. It turns out to just be another world in the Cosmere that has some kind of civilization, but it's unrelated to what's happening.
Yes,
And I
which I
think
loved.
which I thought that was cool too. And it is a little cheeky where I think Hoyd, who's narrating this book, he's like a
Yes.
Cosmere character. But he says something like, "Yeah, I haven't been there. I don't know what's on that world, but don't consider it like a plot hole, but like a potential for future adventures." And I'm like, okay, that's very cheeky Sanderson because I'm sure he seems to have like hundreds of ideas and
Yeah,
like so I'm sure he has an idea for a story that'll take place there one day if he
for
gets to it
sure.
while he's writing 50 other books a year. But fair enough. But no, I thought
Yeah.
that was also a good red herring. Yeah, and then I think later on they're like, okay, well, what if it's like time travel or something? Uh,
So this is, yeah.
which I'm like, which at that point I'm like, okay, now I think it's not time travel because they're guessing it too early. So now I think
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I had a moment as well. So
yeah, yeah. Tell me your
my,
theory.
yes, okay, right.
Yeah.
So my theory was this is just day side, night side of the same planet,
Oh, that would be
right?
cool.
This is a
Yes.
planet where
Okay.
the same side of the planet faces the
Faces the
sun.
sun. Oh, that's yeah. That
So
would be
that's
cool.
why her side is brutally hot and his side
Mm,
is cold and in darkness all the
it
time.
like doesn't
There was
rotate or
something
something. Yeah,
doesn't
something.
rotate, or
Yeah,
yeah, or rotate at the rate at which it turns. Doesn't matter.
yeah,
Whatever the
yeah,
math
yeah.
is, um,
I like that a lot.
and that was my idea, and
Yeah.
it was going to be very much like the spiritual mirrors the physical. So the spirits who are benevolent and harmless on one side
Hmm.
end up becoming hostile and dangerous on the other side, and there was going to be a yin yang thing, which thematically
Hmm.
works.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a similar moment to you where but I got frustrated because
Mm.
because he said this character started going, well, what if it's time travel? And
Yeah.
I went and I went,
Yeah.
that's the first thing you thought of? Like,
Yeah,
sir,
I did
like
think that was a
what?
big leap in
Yeah.
logic because I'm like waiting for this big reveal that it's going to be time travel, and then they're like, "What if it is?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, if
Yeah.
you're guessing that already,
Yeah.
then I'm probably wrong."
But
But
like, I don't mind them theorizing that it's
yeah,
time
yeah,
travel, but it being the first thing
right.
they
That was
think
like
of,
their first guess. Yeah.
I was like, that's not that. Do you know what that feels like? It's like because like Sanderson like talks in his
Mhm.
acknowledgments about um influences and things, and one of his
Mhm.
influences for this was the movie Your Name,
Right. And I've
and
heard that there is time travel in that one.
it's a wonderful movie. Go
Yeah.
watch it. You're
Yeah,
in the
I need to watch
spoiler
it.
section for this book.
Hmm.
Spoilers for Your Name. There's a
Yeah.
time travel element to
Right.
it, and it felt to me
Hmm.
like Sanderson really crassly saying to the audience, "Don't worry, I'm not doing
I'm
an
not
exact
doing,
rip off of Your
yeah.
Name." And I
Yeah.
felt like, but like in a way where the characters wouldn't think of that immediately.
Right, right.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I, the
Yeah, it's like,
author, am
oh, I
assuring
watched.
you, the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, it's like as if the characters had watched Your Name and were like, what if it's a
Yeah,
Your Name situation?
I almost would have
Yeah.
respected it more if one of the things they watched on the He Online thing was a time travel drama,
Right.
because then the idea would have come from
Would have come
somewhere
from somewhere. Yeah.
in world. But yeah, I would have preferred them to cycle through a few options and then go, what if it's time travel? Oh shit! And that would have made more sense. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
both
so what?
had theories.
Yeah, and they were both almost right, but not quite.
Almost right, but not.
Yeah. That's my problem, I think, is that what actually is happening is like impossible to guess because it's like all this
Yeah.
extra world building that is like just dropped on you in like the late chapters is like, okay, here's what's actually going on. So yeah, what it is that um it thousands of or hundreds of years ago, uh
It's over 1,000 years
yeah,
ago.
over 1,000 years ago, it is the same world. Over 1,000 years ago, the people of Yumi's world, Yumi's time, built this machine, which I want to talk about that also,
Yeah.
that was designed to it's AI art basically. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
designed to cause to mimic the same creation patterns of the rock stacking and call on the spirits. And it's not nearly as good as a real Yokihiju, but it's a robot, it's a machine, so it doesn't get tired. So it can just do it
Yeah.
all day. And it can call one or two spirits a day at its like maximum speed, which is
Yeah.
not amazing in comparison. Like Yumi once called like 38 at once or something, which I think is her
Yeah.
her record. But often 10 or 12 at the same time. So it's not better, but it's at least consistent enough that they like start to use
Yeah.
that more often. And then over time, the machine starts to corrupt the spirits. All this stuff goes bad. That's when they kind of start. It starts to, what is it that it takes the spirit, because then the people get sucked into it or something.
Okay, so
I'm trying to
yes,
remember. I'm trying to remember some of the specifics of it.
so what happened was um the machine takes some spiritual energy from the spirits that it summons to run itself.
Right.
So what ends up happening is a very 2001 Space Odyssey moment, right? It's very Isaac
Mhm.
Asimov laws of
Yeah.
robotics sort of thing. Is they tell this they make a robot, they make a huge robot,
Yeah.
and they say to it, okay, here are your instructions. Summon all the spirits that you physically can,
Yeah.
right? And so it does that, and we're told this from sort of Hoyd's perspective, or
Mhm.
like narration,
Yeah.
that uh, to kickstart itself, it grabbed all of the spiritual energy around it, including the spirits of the human beings
Yeah. That were
uh,
nearby.
that were nearby, basically everybody in the city.
Mhm.
So it instantly killed everyone
Yeah.
and then built a bunch of rock piles and trapped all of the spirits inside of itself and just oh yeah, it was told to defend itself and to keep summoning spirits.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Um,
had
right.
like a couple prime directives. Yeah.
Those were its
Yeah. It's
directives,
it's
yeah.
it's three laws or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it did a bunch of stuff to defend itself.
Mhm.
Um, and the way it ended up working was that the Yoki it shredded the bodies of
Yeah.
the Yoki Hydra were killed instantly in the
Yeah.
initial blast, but their souls
Yeah.
are too spiritually powerful to be absorbed by the machine or repurposed. So
Mhm.
they just reconstituted themselves.
Yeah.
Oh yes, because
So
when
then
everybody died, the shroud was
that's when the
created.
shroud is created.
And
And
it's
then so
pure
there's
miasmic creative power,
yeah.
basically. So anything can be made from this stuff.
Yeah.
And the only danger to the machine became these women who
Mhm.
are capable of rebuilding their bodies out of the shroud
Mhm.
and doing anything with it.
Yeah. So
So it creates prisons for them.
yeah, it can't kill them fully, so it traps them. So there's what,
Yes.
13 or so, something like that.
14, yeah.
13 or 14. Oh yeah, there's one her plus 13 others, I think is
Yes,
right. Yeah, Yumi
that's
plus
right.
13. So yeah, that are all trapped in these what they think is a full city. But it's kind of this little pocket thing
Yeah,
that
it's a simulation.
it's a simulation basically, and
Yeah.
allows them to, and it like wipes their memory. It's able to wipe their memory every day, so they
Yeah.
keep like replaying through the same day over and over again. And since their days are already kind of like very so structured,
Mhm.
they don't really notice. And
Until
until Yumi gets so good at repeating the rocks over and over again that she's able to summon enough spirits that one of them is like, help us, and is able uh
yeah.
to cause the soul switching thing, the body swap thing. Which then Painter gets involved and stuff. So Painter is in the same world. He's in like this other part of the world that's that some of the people that survived eventually like managed to reconstitute
Yeah.
themselves, or like not reconstitute, like they were some survivors and they managed to
Mhm.
form cities. And that's like the Shroud came, the Heon line started being,
Yeah, they
that's
were able to
also,
keep the shroud out, and
yeah, that was also part of the spiritual energy of the machine, was related to the creation of the Heon energy. And so they were able to start rebuilding cities from there, and then do the painting stuff, because that's also a thing, is that they mentioned that that the spirits do like other forms of art, but the
yeah,
rock stacking worked the best for them. So there, it makes sense that a connection between painting and art forms and spirits in the nightmares. And again, a lot of the nightmares are actually the souls of people that have been like
yeah,
corrupted by the machine. So that's a big twist also, is that the main big nightmare that Painter's been trying to hunt and find turns out to be the soul of Yumi's main guardian protector person, who's like,
yeah.
who like trained her to teach to stack rocks and stuff. I thought she was a great character because she was like very,
Really good.
very, very passive aggressive and would like say things without saying them and stuff like that. Great. But
Yeah,
you could
very well written.
very well written. I loved her. Like I loved her because I hated her for the first chunk of the book.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I think it was very well done that she was so hateable
Yeah.
and then so human.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, in the revelation. So yeah, the spirits that were, trapped and killed
Mhm.
by the machine are trying to make it back to civilization, trying to recall who they used to be,
Yeah.
and then they end up becoming
These weird
monsters in the
monsters.
process.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the painting, because they're made of like pure potential, pure creative potential, the painting solidifies them in a reality that is harmless,
Mhm.
essentially.
Yes. Yeah, and that's part of
Um,
the philosophy of painting, is to try to paint something that's harmless, so that it traps them in an undangerous form.
yeah,
So like Painter finds that if you just paint bamboo, it works like 90% of the time. Um, yeah, there's this awesome final battle sequence where like Painter's able to gather all the other nightmare painters in the city, and they have to fight this like huge army of nightmares that are coming to the city, and it's so cool.
that's
Um,
great.
yeah, meanwhile Yumi's trying to destroy the machine, which is also very cool. Yeah, so I
Yes.
think part of, yeah, so like my main issue with it, with like the way the stuff is revealed, is that like I think there's just no what possible way to guess it, which I found frustrating, not because like that's allowed, you're allowed to like
Yeah.
reveal stuff late in your book or whatever, but because I think it's partly because I was like trying to figure out what the connection was, and I had a
Yeah.
theory, and my theory didn't come true. But also that's because it would be impossible for me to guess all of these details, because so much of this stuff
Yeah.
is just like, here's all the exposition of how everything actually is connected, like very,
Yeah.
very late into the book. Um,
I think it's interesting because you're not
mhm.
wrong. There
Yeah,
is no way to know. There is no way to figure out the things that led to the world being the way it
yeah,
is. There are a bunch of hints dropped that like help to set you up for the reveal.
yeah.
And there's one that was sort of sitting with me where I had my theory. I had my like day night
Mhm.
theory, but I was like, there's no reason for the shroud to be this way in my theory. Which is
Right.
it is explained by one of the Cosmere people,
Mhm.
um, that the shroud is like pure, like call it investiture, this pure creative
Right.
force that Yumi should be able to shape any way she wants. or that it's possible to shape any way you want. And I went, there's a potential for some really bonkers shit to be true if that's the world building of this world.
Right.
Like I wonder what is going to happen with that. But none of it leads to a knowledge of. So when the reveal happened, it's like, oh yeah, all this bonkers shit has been happening with the pure investor.
Right.
I was like, okay, that makes sense that
Right.
happened that way. But yeah, there is no way to guess the mystery
Yeah,
of it.
which I don't know that it necessarily needs that, but I think I just found it a little bit frustrating that it was partly just because I was wrong and I wanted to be right about
Sure.
something, but also just that it's like I think I found it a little bit clumsy that it was like, okay, now I'm gonna just have a huge exposition dump about
It felt the same way.
I felt about how everything actually works in this world, and it's like, okay, well, we were doing a lot of like very natural world building. Up to this
Yes.
point. We get a lot of scenes of like Yumi learning about Painter's world because she's swapped with places with him, and so he gets to very naturally teach her about the world, and it flows very nicely. And
Yeah.
same with Yumi's world. And then suddenly it's just like, here's a big exposition dump of what's actually going on. It's like, whoa, okay then.
I'm going to
Yeah.
praise the book
Mhm.
a lot, and then I'm going to join you in bashing it on the same point.
Yeah, right.
So there is a chapter where there's a reveal. There are these scholars who have this miniature version of the machine
Mhm.
in a town that Yumi's in, and it can summon spirits and blah blah blah. And they go to confront the scholar and destroy the machine because they think that's what the spirits want.
Mhm.
And there's this chapter in the scene that follows, which to me was incredibly impactful. Was actually my favorite. Was worth the price of the book on its own.
Mm.
Which was that the scholars are not worried at all, and they're like, man, you don't know what's going on. And Painter's like, what? Is it like dimensions layered on top of each other? And he's like, that's not a bad theory, kid. But yeah, you don't know what's going on. And they transform into nightmares right in front of him. And Yumi starts like fading and going like wispy, and her eyes sink in and go white. And she's like, what the fuck's happening to me? And we don't know what's happening to her. She doesn't know what's happening to her. Painter's freaking the fuck out. These people can see him in like they see who he is.
And
they see her in her spirit form.
Yeah.
And he's all like really messed up and weird. And then he is shunted back into his own body. And their connection is gone. And I loved that scene so much. The stakes went extraordinarily high. Didn't know what the hell was going on. Big old curveball thrown our way. I was like, okay, hold on to your seats, here we go. And the following chapters were the clunkiest shit. Really infuriating because, like, yeah, it was all very slow and natural up to that point. This chapter was like so good and like so impactful and really capitalized on the fact that you hadn't been given enough to figure out what was happening. In a really impactful way.
That was a cool, like, what the fuck is happening? I'm scared.
Really
I don't
good.
know what's going on.
I said to my wife, I said, God damn it, Sanderson. Like this chapter on its own is worth having gotten here. And then the plot takes a backseat for a minute, and Hoyt's like, so here's what I think happened. And he just tells you. Like,
Painter and Yumi don't even find out about half of this till I guess later, right?
Yeah.
Which is like okay.
It would have, and the thing that really gets my goat, because it's not just prose that's the thing that my problem with Sanderson, it's delivery of story. Like, I like the stuff with the machine and the commentary, and we'll talk more about the meta stuff about that in a bit. I like that stuff. I hate the way I was told about it, though, and it would have been so much more impactful if Yumi had just done exactly what she did in the actual story, but we hadn't been told about the machine. Like, just
Right.
have her, like, she self-actualizes, she resists the mind control of the machine, the memory
Mhm.
loss thing. She takes control of the shroud, is
Yeah.
able to escape, and
Yeah,
then
this
goes to destroy the machine.
there's a cool thing that I actually do like in a couple of these chapters where Yumi's starting to realize that like her memory's being reset every time,
Yes.
where it starts to repeat the first chapter with Yumi for the first few lines. Um but then like maybe one line will be a little bit different because Yumi's starting to realize like, oh, wait a minute, isn't didn't I do this already? Which I like that a lot. I thought that was very well done.
I loved that idea, and it's something that I've
Mhm.
seen work really, really well in television.
Mhm.
And then, but to see it done in a book was really, really cool, and have it be like exactly the same prose was very, very strong. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh shit, I do remember these
Yeah.
exact words and remember all this. I could have done with that going on for a little bit longer because it
Mhm.
only really lasts for like one page,
For
before,
one before she
yeah.
starts to clue in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's a nitpick.
Yeah.
I agree that that was strong,
Yeah.
but how much more impactful I put to you would it have
Mhm.
been for her to not fully understanding what is going on, like us,
Mhm.
just just break free and figure
Right.
this stuff out, and then discover this giant machine and have the same revelation that she did have,
Mhm.
um in like literally the same thing that happens, but without
Yeah.
us being told, which is like finding the machine and going, oh, this is what happened on the day when I wanted to go to that festival, was
Mhm.
you killed everyone,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
okay,
You could
right,
still
like,
like I know it would yeah, like I like having the scene where the villain explains their plan would be a little bit better than
yeah, yeah,
than this, or at least like a version of well, yeah, like is it even a version of that, or even just have the characters not know exactly what is going on, but because we're seeing both of them, and like as they start to piece together parts of it, like we
yeah,
can kind of figure out and then maybe at the very end, like be like, yeah, so this is a couple beats that have a little bit more exposition to fill in the gaps, maybe. Because even
any,
I don't know, I think
yeah,
it just yeah, there could have been a slightly less clunky way
there,
to do that.
I can think of a few on the
Yeah,
top of my
yeah,
head. um
yeah. Because
yeah,
even during the like final battle, Painters starts because it's not working. They're fighting all these
yeah,
hundreds of nightmares. It's not working. They can hold them off for like a second, and then they're like back to attacking them. So Painter tries painting one of them as a person, which are apparently
yeah,
not. It's kind of it's considered a risky move because it's like you're supposed to turn them into something harmless, but people can be harmful
people can still do stuff, yeah.
depending on the person. So but he tries it and it ends up working, and so he starts painting them as people, and he realizes that like a few of them are people that he's met in
Yeah,
Yumi's world. So like that's already a big clue to what's going on that he just figured out by himself. So even just that would be a cool moment,
yeah, yeah. There was enough. There's enough that they figure out, and there are enough
Mhm.
ways that they could have figured out more,
Yeah,
that I resented the info dump a lot.
yeah.
Um, for sure.
But I liked everything up to that point like
Yeah,
so
me too.
much
Me
that
too.
that I still think it's maybe kind of worth it still. Um,
Well,
like
that's,
I was
yes,
still
it is. It
I
is
still
still
yeah,
worth
I
it.
still think it is
Yeah,
because I was still like invested and I'm like I want to know what's gonna happen. And now that they're separated, there's a lot of tension there because you're like, how are they gonna
yeah,
how the odds seem like so against them at that point that you're like, how are they gonna stop any of this?
yeah. And the two sides of the final battle, her taking control and fighting the machine, and
Mhm.
him rallying the other painters and fighting, like defending against this, like again and
Mhm.
again, the yin yang of it, that
Yeah,
she has to go on the attack while he has to defend,
yeah,
right?
right.
Like, just it continues throughout. It's so well
It's good.
constructed.
Yeah,
It's and and those are each things which are the inverse of the way that they were usually doing things.
yeah, for
Where
sure.
her
Yes.
job was very like nurturing and passive, whereas his is like an aggressive.
Yeah, I have to go out and look
Yeah.
for stuff. Yeah.
And then it's like, no, he has to defend while she has to destroy, and
Mhm.
it's good. It's really good on a thematic level.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a good final battle, and there are very cool visuals involved in on both sides of it. Yeah, especially yeah, some of the visuals with the painters are very very cool. At one point, he just paints on the ground to
Yeah.
save somebody, and it's just like, oh, it's just very very fun
Yes.
stuff like that. Um, yeah, and I didn't have a problem with the way it concluded either.
Yeah.
I
No,
thought it was a pretty good ending.
Yeah, I think it worked. He does the very ending is he does one final painting of Yumi, which is enough. And he's putting his whole heart into it. And
Yeah,
it's enough to summon her spirit, so she gets to live again in Painter's world as a normal person. And
yeah, it's
they
just yeah,
get to be together, and it's a nice little happy ending for everyone. Which
yeah.
I'm 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 okay with a happy ending. I'm all right with that.
Yes, me as
Yeah.
well. Me as well. Yeah, the shroud is
Yeah,
gone.
the shroud goes
Um,
away. They manage to
people have
find
yeah.
they there's not necessarily a need for nightmare painters anymore, so there's a little bit of restructuring of their world, but eventually they find a balance, and that's sort of
Yeah.
the it all seems to work out. Little nice Hoyd gets to go home or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
Hoyt has been a statue in a restaurant this entire
Mhm.
time, and he's not a statue anymore.
Yeah.
Hooray! Um,
Uh,
I thought Hoyt being there, it was
it's
I
fine.
don't yeah, it was fine. It was fine. I liked what was her name?
Oh,
It-
the noodle shop owner.
the noodle shop owner. Yeah,
Design.
design.
I
Yes,
liked her.
she was fun.
She was fun.
Uh, good lord.
We're going again.
Um, yes, I liked design. Hoyd wasn't in the story as like he was in Tress. He was not in this one.
Yeah,
Um,
he was telling the story technically, but
yes.
he was not like a character in it.
No.
No.
And yeah, and then Hoyd Hoyd puts in a snarky little thing at the end where he's like, and the whole point of this was that I got to go home.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're a bit of a dick, dude. Yeah, if that's
If
like
that's what you got out of the story.
yeah, I think I brought something from Tress into this where I'm like, in Tress, he takes a lot of pride in being a storyteller, and he's like, my point is that I go to worlds and I find stories and then I tell them. I'm like, in this telling of this story, you suck. You're a bad storyteller, Hoyt.
Damn.
Hey, maybe that was the maybe that's character work
Maybe that's
for Hoyt.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what
Who
this
knows?
deal is. Um
Uh-huh.
yeah. Okay. I think that's most things. Is there any other things you wanted to mention? Because we have been going for a little while now.
Yes, we have. I don't envy you the task of
No,
editing all of this.
I'll get to
No,
it.
we really went through this one.
Yeah.
This
Well, I had a lot of thoughts and I needed to talk to someone about them.
yeah, me too. Me too. We got really close to starting on this off camera a little
Yeah.
while ago. Just
Yeah,
we have to be like, no, we have to talk about it properly.
yeah.
But I do think, you know, in our last one that we read, there were a few things that we wanted to dive into. Um, but this one really captured the imagination and
Yes.
really there
Oh,
was
absolutely.
um
Yeah, even though there were some things that didn't fully work for me, I was still like in it, like for the whole thing. And I was like, I want to know more
yeah,
about this world and these characters. I'm loving all the themes of art and spirit, like how art is spiritual, like is related to spirituality and all
yeah.
that stuff. And it's like there's like literally the AI art machine destroys the
Yes.
world and kills hundreds of people. And it's like it's hard to be, you know, like more blatant about
Yeah.
what they're saying about the what Sanderson is saying about like the dangers of AI art, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fully on board for that. Like I agree.
Yeah, 100%. It just, yeah, the generative art thing is bad. It's
Yeah.
bad.
Oh yeah.
Straight up. That's it.
Yeah. Well put.
Yes, I think I think my annoyances are like peevish.
Hmm.
I think it's a taste thing,
Yeah.
and it bugs me way more than like it deserves to detract from the book, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. Because I think I get what you're saying because it's like it's so creative and it's so interesting, like so many cool ideas. Like
yeah,
that's one of the things I loved about this book is you usually get one very cool magic system in a Sanderson book,
mhm.
but in this one you get two. You get two for the
Yeah,
price of one. And that's I think a very cool way to, and I can't think of another. I actually was trying to think of another story where there's like two worlds of like two fantastical worlds that we get to spend like equal time in. Because usually in like a fantasy story, it's like a normal person goes to a fantasy world, or sometimes vice versa, or it's just like
or
one
yes,
major fantasy world with
sometimes
different like factions or different aspects to it. But this
yeah,
is like
sometimes
this
a
is
fantasy people come from one world to another world, but we spend all our time on the world they come
yeah,
to,
yeah.
right? Like it's a
It,
really impressive thing that he's done with
Yes,
this
and
book.
to make it still like accessible and not feel overwhelming, to
Yeah,
like learn about two full complex fantasy magic systems, uh,
yeah.
but you're able to follow it very easily.
Mhm.
Um, so like all of that stuff, I think is very impressive and very cool, and worth the price of admission.
For
Oh,
sure.
there was one thing I wanted to mention about the language because you did the audiobook. I did
Yes.
the physical book. And so there's a thing that they mention in I guess Hoyt or whatever is translating from Yumi
Yes.
and Painter's language, where they have this concept of a lowly phrase or a highly phrase,
Yes.
which is like if it's the way that you say the word, like almost the context or the way that you phrase it
Mhm.
in their language can either mean that you're thinking very highly of what you're saying or you're thinking very lowly of what you're saying. And I was wondering about how they distinguish that in the audiobook, or if it was just because in the physical book it was just like in brackets Painter
Yeah.
said highly or Painter said lowly, something like that. Or
The
sometimes, but
the
sometimes it would be in like the dialogue itself where they'd be like, "There's no lowly way we can do this," almost like a swear word or something, which I thought was
yeah.
really cool. How is it in the audio?
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
The narrators, it's narrated by um Michael Kramer and her name. I can't remember. No.
I'll look it up and put it in
Thank
the
you.
yeah.
This woman,
Yeah.
they're married.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
They do a very excellent job of. I knew that that was the way it was written on the page from the way that
Hmm.
they
Okay.
said it.
Very cool.
Yeah, they did. They do. Yeah, there's no lowly way that we're ever going to do that.
Right. Okay.
That's how they said it. So
That's okay. Very cool. Yeah. That was yeah. Anyways, I thought that was a cool concept, and I liked
very cool
trying to
idea.
express a concept that's in other languages in English. Like I'm assuming this
Mhm.
is a concept that is in uh either Korean or other languages that I only know English, so I don't know how other languages work. But
I
I think it's cool to try to translate because I think there's a line
yes,
about like this is the best I can do for you who speak boring languages with only one variation of how you say a word,
for
which I thought
sure.
was
And I liked that it wasn't a one-to-one because
yeah.
I
If
don't know about Korean, but I know that in Japanese you have suffixes that you attach
right.
to ways that you address people
Mhm.
to denote
Sort of like
how
your
casual or respectful
yeah
you are toward
or
that person.
formal or like sort of how your relationship to that person is as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't an exact steal. It was, but it still
Yes.
felt very linguistically plausible.
Yeah. Very well put. Yeah. Was there any other things you wanted to mention about this book?
Um, I think the only other thing I did want to briefly touch on was that there's an element going through of Painter's character arc,
Oh yeah.
which is that he's fallen out with his friends because he lied to them.
Hmm.
He wanted to be a super painter,
Hmm. Yeah.
a superhero, super painter person. And he was so talented and so magnificent a painter that no one had any doubt that he would get it. And then he
Hmm.
didn't get it, and it devastated him. And he
Yeah.
didn't have the heart to tell his friends, and he ended up lying to them for a long time, and they resent him for it. Um,
Hmm.
and the big reveal for that is that only people with privileged positions get into the super
Yeah.
watch.
It's like, oh, my uncle's on the
Yeah.
committee or something, and it's more about who you know than actually how talented you are.
Yeah, and uh, I didn't mind that.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. The only thing I wanted to say about it is that uh, it's really obvious. Um, and I don't blame the character work is good enough that Painter's in a funk and he's depressed and he wouldn't think that, but that no one thought that
Right. Yeah.
was a little implausible to me.
That's fair. Yeah, like someone else on
Any of his friends,
of his
yeah.
group of friends should be like, oh, like yeah, that you have
Did
to
nobody think like, wait
yeah,
a second,
you have to
he
know
is good enough to get
yeah,
in.
he's
Why didn't he
obviously
get
good enough
in?
to get
Yeah.
in, so like maybe it's yeah, like they should have asked two more questions about why he didn't
Yeah.
get in. Yeah.
All
Okay.
I'm saying is that Painter has bad friends. Like
Yes.
they are bad friends to him. He's bad to them. Don't get me wrong. He's a bad
Yeah.
friend to them. They're
Yes.
also bad to him. There.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Um yeah, okay. I think we gotta wrap this up because we've been
Yeah,
going
we
for
have
too
to. It's so much stuff. That's so much we talked about. I
Yeah.
loved this.
Yeah. This was wonderful. What book should we need read next? Leave a comment. I don't know.
Yeah.
um,
Well, I was just thinking because
we'll think of something. Yeah.
yeah, we're library people.
Mhm.
If I was thinking to myself, do we say get in the comments, or do we say, or do we figure it out now and then you just edit in at the end that we
Comment either way, because then we'll do one the following. So either this will whatever you comment will maybe be the next book, or will be the following after the next book.
I like that.
Did you have an idea for a book that we do next?
No.
Okay. I did not either. So
no,
that's...
I don't.
But I'll think on it.
Okay. Okay, that's great. That's the video.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching.
Alrighty.
Like and subscribe and all those things. Leave a comment for what we should do next. Go check out Josh's channel, or I don't know. Send him like him on, I don't know. I'll post something. Go see his he's in a play of Frankenstein in Winchester in March. So if you're in Winchester the month of March 2025, go check it out.
There you go. Thank you. I like that plug. That's great.
All right.
Alrighty.